This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi, my name is Lahey. I'm an addict in recovery. I do what I can, to the best of my ability to stay clean every day and enjoy life and enjoy the good moments and to help others, like however I can. And so I do this show with my dad, Phil. It's called The Empty Chair, Exposing Addiction. The empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery is possible, and sometimes knowing recovery is possible. It's a really powerful disease, a disease of addiction, and it's really important that we get the word out about the good, the bad, and everything in between, so people know, because information and awareness is just so important dealing with this. So you can watch us on YouTube, The Empty Chair Show. We have a lot of episodes on there, like 8 or 9 episodes. 11, yeah. Okay. So we have a lot on there if you want to catch up on all the past shows. Like we have recovering addicts, people working in treatment, just like all kinds of shows on there that you can catch up on. So I don't know. I guess I'll introduce my dad, Phil, and he'll introduce our guests.
Hi guys, and welcome to our show. I'm pretty excited about today's show. Many of you know I belong to a support group, and over the years, people in our support group, believe it or not, when they had one of their kids or one of their loved ones go into jail, they were actually happy because they felt that they were safer in jail than they were in the street. And it's true, actually. But what I've found out since then, that going to jail doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning. So I'm so pleased to have as my guests Sheriff Cousins and Deputy Jason Faro. How's that?
Thank you.
And actually what they're going to do is we're going to ask them a few questions, but they're going to basically explain a program that's within the jail that I'm very excited about, and actually Colleen and I just found out about through the Sheriff's Department. So guys, if you want to just kind of give us an opening statement on exactly what this program is aside from the jail.
Thank you very much, Phil. It's good to be here with you, Colleen. And what we do at the Middleton House of Correction is just a couple of statistical things that might, for your viewers, find interesting. 90% of the people that come to jail today have alcohol and substance abuse or drug problems. And 70% of them have committed drug or alcohol-related crimes in our communities. So we look at that as the #1 thing to try to get people from coming back to jail and really try to focus on those underlying causes which really cause the problems for the individual. So at the Middleton House of Correction, back in 1995, when I was a state legislator, we started through the Department of Public Health program called SACO. It was a substance abuse treatment community. And then it's kind of evolved over the last few years with the help of Dr. Steve Valley and Jason Faro and the staff of clinicians that work, and we call it a TRACK program. And we have about 160 sentence beds that we're committed to helping people for treatment that Jason manages for us.
Awesome.
But I'll let Jason tell a little about the program if it's all right.
Sure.
Right. It's a 6-month, what we call a therapeutic community. So in order to graduate the program, and you have to complete the 6 months within, but the course of the day for any participant involves groups, individual programming, and we also have a great network with AA and NA commitments that come in on a daily basis to meet with the participants and the clients, and that really creates a lot of great networking for the population and the men when they leave, so that they can make some really great connections when they leave. But beyond a full day and a full complement of groups that, we talk about recovery, aftercare, relapse, and a lot of these topics that are associated with addiction, a big piece for us, and we've kind of talked about it, is the importance of obviously doing treatment, committing themselves to treatment while they're incarcerated, but connecting them to these resources for when they're released. So a big piece of this program is what we call reentry, and making sure that beyond just addiction, we're identifying mental health issues, medical issues, family connections that we can help support and reconnect So that's a big piece of what we do, so that when they leave, not only are they leaving with a complement of treatment and programming with the institution, but there's this continuum of care for their release. And our policy is when we connect them to this, they just don't walk out the door by themselves. If they need a ride directly to the program, we'll take them there. We'll make sure they get there. And an important piece that we find too is we make sure that they have insurance for medications, if they have mental health issues, any medical types of issues, and that we're securing all like the corollary components that are associated with what they have going on in terms of their addiction. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, not only while they're there, but more importantly, or is equally important for when they leave.
That's so great that you do that, because I don't know how, but I managed to not get arrested. Like, I don't have a record. That is like uncommon for like the world of addiction, and most of my friends, like, they've had to deal with that. And exactly what you said, like when they leave, like that's the one thing that always like concerned them, or they were worried about, was that usually if there's no treatment, like while they're in jail, or if there's no positive, information or people or anything, they're left with like two choices: either they use or they go to treatment.
Right.
And like leaving feeling like overwhelmed. And I can't really identify with that because I haven't gone through it, but I've heard it from them. And a lot of times it's like they get pulled to what they're used to doing, which is what they've been doing like for years, which is to go back and use again. So the fact that you guys are doing that is just like, it's so huge.
Yeah, actually, I'd actually like to ask you a question to follow up on what you said about the 90% thing. And don't get me wrong, I am absolutely thrilled. I understand, even being the parent of an addict, I understand that when addicts commit a crime, they have to be punished. But I'm thrilled at the fact that you're doing this because, like you said, 90%. So you do punish the crime, but you're actually treating the cause. So, I mean, the chances of them coming back are at least a little bit less with the treatment. But now, what I'm curious is, how do you do a selection process? I know you're going to want. If everybody knows this is available, I'm sure anybody wants to go in there because they'll probably figure it's easier time or whatever like that. How do you select the candidates to go into that program?
What we try to do is part of the reentry initiative, when people come into, and we've changed this over the last several years, and we really focus on the treatment aspect of it, is when people are sentenced, when they come to jail, we want to make sure that we get all of the documentation from the courts, the police reports, and then when Jason and the clinical people that work in classification and reentry can sit down with a person and they look at it and they say, okay, you haven't graduated from high school. We've noticed that you were arrested for maybe OUI or possession of drugs within a school zone, or were in some type of an assaultive type relationship. And you put those things right on the table with a person and you say, look, we've got an opportunity to try to work with you to try to move you off of the life of drugs and alcohol, and give them an opportunity to take one of the beds, the treatment beds in the SACO, the old SACO, the track unit, we tell them. And then we tell them also, as part of the step-down process, which I think is really important, is you're going to be eligible to go to the Lawrence Farm, and we continue the track program up at the Lawrence Farm. So we get this continuum of care where we move from Middleton, we go up to Lawrence, to the Lawrence Farm, and then one of the final step-down pieces that we work on the Lawrence too, which is very important, is the GPS monitoring. And part of the GPS monitoring is those individuals are pretty much in sober living houses that you talked about, where people don't have a place to go. So maybe it's the Link House in Newburyport. It could be the Progress House up in Amesbury. We have a 12-step house in Saugus, which is sober living environment. We have Andrews Street in Lynn, which is again a sober living environment. So we have the Firehouse in Lawrence, which there's about 17 beds. The fellow that owns the firehouse, the old firehouse, his son is in treatment and recovery, and he's committed to that. So these individuals, maybe they come from Lawrence, they can live in that in our custody. We have the drug testing. The drug treatment is available for them. That was another thing you mentioned. So when someone is out on GPS, they can go to the OCC Center in downtown Lawrence, the one up in Salisbury on the way down to Salisbury Beach. We have one also in Lynn at the Lynn Common in the old Armory. So you try to put together a plan, so when someone comes in, they see a little ray of hope. Yes, maybe this time I'm going to listen. I'm going to think about, what drugs and alcohol have done to me, and it's brought me into the criminal justice system. I tell this to people all the time, and there are a lot of good people from good families that are in jail today, and parents and loved ones that care, and so we really try to take that initiative to try to change their behavior, because the options are very limited. You're either going to turn it around, or you might end up in a, unfortunately, a state hospital or something with a wet brain, or in some type of a coma, or you could end up being like you have the empty chair here, dead.
Good point.
And those are the three options, really.
Yeah, it's really scary. Most of the places that you mentioned, it's like there's a lot of meetings around all those places, like in Lynn, like a lot of like really good meetings. I try and go to meetings because it works, and to be like exposed to that. I think like really helps a lot, because you do start to hear things, because I know sometimes people go to meetings because they have to get paper signed or whatever, but whatever gets them there,
That's right.
whatever gets them there, so they can start like hearing the message of recovery, and maybe that seed will get planted, and maybe they'll start to see people that are smiling and look happy and look okay, because I know for me, like I just got to a point where like I didn't want my life to be like that anymore, regardless if I didn't end up in jail. I ended up in psych wards and mental institutions and suicide attempts, and just like just wanting to die. So it's about like the feelings, not necessarily like where you end up, and you just reach that point where it's like you just want to change. And I'm sure just like the programs that I go to, like the fellowship I go to, it's not for people who need it, it's for people who want it. Like you have to really want it, and you have to do the work, and that's when you start to get like the benefits from it, so it's so important, the treatment side of it.
I'm going to ask you a question that's almost impossible to answer, but I ask it to all the ones who work at recovery houses that come in. What do you think your success rate is?
Well, we've been very fortunate. Several years ago, one of my friends, he's a judge at the housing court, he grew up with me in Newburyport now, said to me, he says, geez, I got this interesting fellow that's at Harvard. He's taken his master's program in statistics, and he's really involved in statistics. So this was about 6 years ago, and I said, let's have him come up and do an internship. I says, one thing we've always struggled with is getting data to what's working, what's not.
Good.
So we were fortunate enough to bring him on, and his name's Mo Pratt, and he's a statistician. So
I think I heard that.
yeah, so he that's his little specialty. So what he'll do is we will track people when they leave, and it's very interesting, as you know, when people are doing well, they want to tell you, and and if they've been involved in the step down process, they're going to be able to communicate with us. We're going to tell them. We're going to say, look, we're going to want to know how you're doing after you've been out of jail for 6 months. We're going to want to know how you're doing after you've been out of jail for a year. So, for example, the Women in Transition, which is the Marist Center up in Salisbury that we talked a little bit about, we track all of the women after 1 year of being released from our custody. So we look at that, and we're finding that about 78% of them have not picked up a drug or alcohol.
How many percent?
78% of the women.
Wow.
After 1 year. And so we're getting some real strong numbers. And we've been doing that for about almost the length that Mo's been with us, about 5.5 years.
That's
so we've got
incredible.
statistical data that we can give to the legislators in Boston, we can talk about in front of groups like yourself, and the public understands the importance of these programs and the value from a public safety standpoint. Now, the interesting thing is, which I think is great because you're here with your daughter, I very seldom have fathers call me about their daughters. It's really, it's hard to explain this, but I'm always getting a call from mom or father. My son's in Middleton, what's going to happen with him? And it's almost like, because a woman, we were ashamed and we don't want to talk about it, but the males don't do as good as the women when they, and our statistics show that.
Right.
After being released from 1 year, and they could still be on probation or parole, clearly, we're finding that about 49% of the men are doing well. And so we're losing about 50% that are either relapsing, and if we know when people relapse, they might drive a car drunk again, or they'll get caught, and they'll violate probation or parole and come back to jail. So the men are not doing as good, but we're at least communicating with them, we're getting the information, and over a 1-year period, we're releasing about 1,250 people to everybody's communities. So there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, your percentage, even the men at, would you say 40?
About 49%.
Even at 49%, I know we're both blown away with that number.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
are blown away because the national average is, what, 12, 13%,
Something like that,
14%?
yeah.
I mean, the average
I
of,
never really paid attention to the
yeah,
statistics
because
they were
they're
always
so,
really
they're so terrible.
discouraging.
Yeah.
Right.
But to have those kind of percent, and you're, because we have talked to others, and they basically say there's more failures than successes. You know, the failures may come back and try again and get it and so forth like that. But that is, guys can
Well,
be very proud of yourself.
Yeah.
We're very happy about that, but we're constantly trying to do better and trying to improve on it. But I think the statistics is very, very important. That's something I
Absolutely.
learned because you can kind of tweak. And, you know, like a little thing, I'll give you a perfect example with the men, which we find, because we're getting a younger population now, you know, there's no town drunks anymore as we
Yeah.
see out of, you know, I'm a baby boomer out of that era, or even, you know, people a little bit older. The average age is about 24 that are being incarcerated. And we're finding that a GED it goes a long way in terms of recovery. So there's a lot of people that Jason works very hard on, you know, while they're in Middleton to try to get them started on, you know, working on their GED, because that, along with the treatment aspect, goes together. And it'll help them get a job. It'll help them feel better about themselves. So we find little things like that through our
Now,
statistics.
tell me
It must feel
something.
good to see them like not coming back, the ones who do well there, you know, because I know like a kind of revolving door, like, you know, go to jail and then get out and then use and then go back to jail. So it must be nice to see them go through your program and not come back.
And it's equally as nice, like institutionally, like the sheriff said, with part of the track program is if we, again, this assessment gets into education. If you don't have your high school diploma, part of the program is you have to be involved in the GED program. And we have a lot of great success, and a lot of the guys that are there, when they get their GED, it just adds to their motivation to succeed, and it translates into the recovery too.
Yeah.
So that piece, and interestingly enough, you know, especially with the younger guys, like the sheriff said, you know, we have, you know, 20s and mid-20s. When they're afforded these opportunities, more often than not, you get a great response, and they want to get involved. And fortunately, jail for a lot of these guys, we're their first time that somebody's showing a lot of interest in them and succeeding. Hey, you got to go to school. We got to work on a few things. We got to make sure that when you're released, you have somewhere safe to go. Yeah. And when you start showing that interest, it starts to generate their own self-confidence.
Well, yeah, you're showing
So,
that
yeah.
maybe, you know, that somebody might believe in them or think
Yep.
that they can do it, and it gives them a little bit of hope, and then you start to get better, and then, you know, it's like a ripple effect. Like, they get well, and then they want to, like, help others get well. I mean, how many addicts end up, like, going back to school, and then they end up becoming drug and alcohol counselors because they want to help, you know?
Absolutely.
It's just, it's so
Yeah.
important. I know that the negativity and just the way the disease of addiction is contagious and it spreads, and you are who you hang with and all that stuff, but on the other side, like, you know, I get well, you know, because of an addict who got well and helped me, like my sponsor, who, you know, unfortunately she passed a couple weeks ago, but like everything she taught me is still with me. It will be forever. And I'm able to like help other women, and then they get well and they're able to help. And that's how I get a lot of hope from that, you know, because it's easy to focus on just like the negative and it's so bad, and, you know, you just drive down Broadway in Lawrence and it's everywhere. But you go to a meeting and you hear like stories, or hearing you guys talk about success stories and like the statistics, which I'm actually quite happy to like hear statistics for once. Like, that is just incredible,
Yeah.
you know, and that gives like me hope, and it helps me to like want to even like do more, you know, because it is possible for people to get better.
And I think you pointed out an important point. Having people that go back to school and get a drug and alcohol certificate at Northern Essex, or I teach at North Shore, and then work in the field in our setting is very important to the climate of the institution. You're right on target there. We have some great clinical people that work at the farm here in Lawrence, and then work in Middleton and work for Jason. That they're in recovery. A couple of them have been into jail. We're committed to them. We hire them in those positions, and some of them haven't, of course. But that makes a lot of hope to, like you said,
Oh,
to the
yeah.
person.
And I think they're
Yeah.
the best type of counselors.
Absolutely.
They've been there. And I mean, Colleen's mentioned it 100 times. She respects people who, you know, do recovery and so forth like that. But when the ones that's counseling her has walked in her shoes, it has an impact. It has a huge impact, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And what I touched on already with our relationship with AA community and NA community, huge for us that they come in every night, they do groups for us, they do commitments with the unit, and that is a huge resource for us, and it's so welcomed by the guys on the unit. They love every night that they come in and they're able to do this, and it's
It is
Yeah,
important. Just the whole
yeah.
meeting, the meeting part of it is just huge.
But I would like that now, with the success you've had in Middleton, okay? Has it spread to other, I mean, women's jails, different counties, whatever? Are they starting to pick up programs like this? Because a lot of our viewers obviously aren't from Essex County.
The answer to that is yes. You know, I was the former president of the Mass Sheriff's Association, and this year I'm the vice president of the drug and alcohol treatment and the reentry initiatives for the Sheriff's Association. And one of my favorite colleagues is Mike Ash, who's the sheriff out in Springfield, Hampden County. He's the senior sheriff of Massachusetts. He's 73. He's got a lot of energy. He's really into programming. And he helped me a tremendous amount when I took over as the sheriff here in Essex County. But the two of us, we've held multiple reentry workshops with, and Jason's made presentations with our other sheriff's departments and the DOC about the importance of programming, the importance of reentry initiatives, the importance of the educational component for GEDs. And that's one of our goals for the Sheriff's Association, to standardize, like you just said, as much of these programs within the houses of correction in the Commonwealth. So we're really working on that. We've got some national models. We look at best practices, which from a taxpayer standpoint is the way to go. And we're making progress on that.
Now, I'd like to think that as your success grows and hopefully other jails' success grows, does the state let go of the funding a little bit? I mean, if they see you're successful, will they kind of start giving in the dollars?
One of the good things, and I think I just came from the Essex County Chiefs Association meeting this morning. One of the good things that's happened this year, to answer your question on the funding issue, is Representative Brian Dempsey and your Representative Linda Dean Campbell, who's on the Public Safety Committee, the House shifted to a new matrix of funding for the sheriff's departments, not on geared at how many employees you have or how big your agency is. It's geared on inmate population, and it's driven on a national formula per inmate cost, and that's really the way that it should be. So if you have a small agency, you're going to be on that same matrix. So we've really kind of focused on that, and the legislators made a big step. We understand that the Senate is going to be moving in that direction.
Wonderful.
And our state senator, Kathleen, because she's from Newport, she represents you folks in Methuen. She's excellent. And she's going to be pushing for that same metrics that Brian Dempsey in the House and Linda Dean Campbell pushed. So I think that's positive.
Well, that's good, because I know I'm going to be knocking on Kathleen.
You can tell her. Yeah. We talked about that. Yeah.
Guys, I've only got about 3 or 4 minutes left. I wanted, and I can't believe we do, a lot of people, parents like myself, are going to watch this, and a lot of them, when their kids went to jail or when their loved ones went to jail, you know, I mean, it was, you know, like they were dead themselves. And I can't believe, like I say, I mean, I've been involved in this for quite a few years, and I wasn't even aware of this program within the jail. So parents are going to look and they're going to say, oh, my kid's in jail, but geez, he couldn't get it on the outside. Maybe he'll get it on the inside. So, I mean, I'm so excited just hearing about it. I'm so excited that, you know, the politicians, are embracing it, because we all know that you have to get the funding in order to continue the programs that you want to do. So obviously I'm very excited about that. But I'm even more excited with the fact that people who run jails, and I know your main purpose is, you know, you're punishing the crime, but by you doing this, you're admitting that, yeah, the crime is being punished, but what's causing them to commit this crime? By you admitting that, maybe people on the outside will say, well, if they know so much about it, maybe this thing is a disease, and maybe by treating the cause, you know, we will reduce crime in itself that way there.
No, I agree with you 100%, and it is a way of reducing crime. There is no question about it. It's being smart on crime.
Yeah.
And it's a way to reduce crime, but also, you know, what are we in business of helping people? And that's the bottom line.
And that's good. Guys, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed having you here. I'm thrilled about learning it. Carl, you got a couple of closing statements?
Yeah, I just want to thank you again. And just when he said about like getting to the root of things, like that's what you guys are doing. You know, you're not putting like a Band-Aid over a gunshot. When you're actually like getting to the root of things and helping people. And like if somebody didn't do that for me, then I don't think I would be here. And the show is like, you know, just exposing things and smashing stigmas and all that. And I know that, you know, people in active addiction, they look at parents as the enemy. They look at anybody having to do with law enforcement in any way, shape, or form as the enemy, and that's not true. You know, like those are all just like lies and judgments. Like you guys are here to help, like you are helping, and I just want to say like thank you for that. Like thank you for having some compassion and some open-mindedness and understanding, because you're definitely saving a lot of lives, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good one.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks again.
Thank you.
You know, for myself, for Colleen,
thank
and
you,
our
Kevin.
very great
Thank you
guest,
so much.
Jason.
Pleasure
It's been
to
a
meet you.
pleasure,
Thank you,
Sheriff.
Phil.
I can't
Thank
tell
you.
you how much I
Very much.
appreciate it. We'll be back next month. Who knows who we'll have for a guest, but come back. You're going to learn some good stuff, and obviously so will we. So we'll see you next month. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Great.